Today, I want to tell you a story that sounds like a myth, but feels like a mirror. It's the story of a man who spent his whole life insulting God, not doubting politely, not questioning respectfully, insulting, abusing, spitting venom again and again right at the divine. And yet, the story ends with something that can shake you. Because even after all that hatred, that man was liberated. Now, before your mind protests, before you say, "How is that fair?" stay with me. Because this isn't a story about rewarding negativity. It's a story about something far deeper. The strange power of attention, the hidden bondage of desire, and the quiet, practical path that can make your mind feel clean again. So, take a deep breath, and let's walk into it slowly. Pause. The man's name was Shishupāl. He was born into a royal family. He was related to Krishna, almost like family. And when he was born, something unusual happened. He had 4 arms. People were stunned, because in spiritual stories, 4 arms are usually a sign of a divine being, a special destiny, a powerful life. So there was a celebration. Astrologers came, priests came, elders gathered, and the astrologer read the birth chart and made a prediction. He said, "This child will become a mighty warrior. He will be famous. He will be powerful." And then he said something even more chilling. He will die at the hands of the person whose lap causes his extra arms to disappear. Everyone looked at each other. What does that even mean? So, as part of the ritual, people started placing the child in their laps, one by one. Uncles, elders, leaders, royal guests. Nothing changed. The child remained with 4 arms. And then they placed him in Krishna's lap. And immediately the extra arms disappeared. Silence fell. Fate became visible. And then something very human happened. His mother panicked. She was Krishna's aunt. She started crying and begged Krishna, "Please, I'm asking for a boon. Promise me you will not kill my son." Now listen carefully, because Krishna's response is where this teaching becomes medicine. Krishna said, "I will forgive him 100 offenses." 100. Not once, not twice, 100. As if the divine is saying, "I know how difficult humans can be. I know how messy the heart can be. I will still give time. I will still give chances." Pause. But here's the twist. Shishupāl didn't grow up into a sweet devotee. He grew up into an enemy. From the time he began speaking, this is what the story says, he began insulting Krishna. It became his nature. Some people are obsessed with love. Some are obsessed with success. Some are obsessed with proving themselves. Shishupāl was obsessed with hatred. And he carried that hatred into adulthood like a crown. Now, one day, there was a grand gathering of kings, a sacred ceremony, a royal assembly where even saints and wise elders were present. And in this gathering, Krishna was honored. He was given the first worship, the highest respect. Most people stayed quiet. Some were joyful, some were simply respectful. But Shishupāl stood up, and he began to speak. And his words were harsh, cutting, insulting. He attacked Krishna publicly. The entire hall froze. Even the kindest people would feel anger at such disrespect, and the warriors in the room, they could barely contain themselves. Bhimsen stood up first. He said, "Learn to respect your elders. Learn to respect your family. You are related. Don't speak like this." And Shishupāl laughed. He basically said, "Sit down. You talk too much. You can't fight me." Then even Bhishma, the grand elder, respected by all, stood up. Bhishma said, "I am devoted to Krishna. If you say even one more word, I will not listen to anyone. I will end you myself." Now imagine that. The most disciplined elders, the greatest warriors, everyone is ready to destroy Shishupāl. And Krishna does something shocking. Krishna says, "Sit down, be quiet, let him speak." And then Krishna begins counting, as if he is counting Shishupāl's offenses. 98, 99. And Krishna warns, "Be careful. I promised your mother I would forgive you 100 times. One word remains. After that, don't blame me." But Shishupāl doesn't stop. He speaks again. And then Krishna's Sudarshan Chakra, his divine weapon, ends Shishupāl's life. And the lecture says something very intense. It says Shishupāl received Param Udar, a supreme liberation, something that even great sages struggle for. Pause. Now, if you're listening and your mind feels uncomfortable, good. Because the story isn't meant to be comfortable. It's meant to make you ask, how is this possible? And here is where the real teaching begins. The teacher says, look at the gopis. They were Krishna's lovers, devotees, worshippers, whatever word you prefer. But what was special about them wasn't just their devotion, it was their attention. They were selling yogurt, doing household work, walking through the village, but their mind was soaked in Krishna. They would call out, "Krishna Lelo, Damoda Lelo, Madhav Lelo." Even while doing normal things, the divine was their inner music. Now the teacher says something that can change your life if you understand it. Shishupāl had the same thing. Not love, but attention. His mind was also constantly on Krishna, in hatred, in obsession, in opposition, but still his consciousness was tied to the divine. And this reveals one powerful truth. Your mind becomes what it repeatedly remembers.
Whatever you think about the most, you start becoming. If you keep thinking about betrayal, you become bitter. If you keep thinking about money, you become restless. If you keep thinking about approval, you become anxious. If you keep thinking about God, even with conflict, your mind is still moving toward that center. Now, please don't misunderstand. This is not permission to become negative. This is not saying hatred is holy. This is saying attention is powerful. And if misdirected attention can still create a connection, imagine what loving attention can do. Pause. Now the lecture takes a sharp turn. It says, the real bondage in your life is not your job, not your family, not your responsibilities. The real bondage is desire. Because desire is the glue that makes the world feel heavy. The teacher says it very simply. The world becomes firm through desire. Meaning, your attachment to the world becomes strong because you keep wanting things from it. You keep expecting it to satisfy you. And as long as your heart keeps dividing life like this is good, this is bad, this should happen, this should not happen, your mind will remain restless. Because you're living in duality, and duality is exhausting. You are constantly pulled by attraction and pushed by aversion, and in between, your peace dies. Pause. Then the teacher says something almost funny, but also very true. People want blessings, but they don't want discipline. They want God to solve their problems, but they don't want to change their habits. They want peace, but they want to keep the same addictions. They want success, but they want to keep the same laziness. They want a saint to adjust God for them, as if spirituality is a business deal. Let me do whatever I want, let me live any way I want, and you just bless me so everything goes well. And the teacher says that's impossible. You cannot do wrong and demand peace. You cannot plant thorns and ask for roses. If you want divine nectar, you have to clean the cup. Pause. And then the lecture gets very practical. It says, if you want the holy name to settle in your heart, if you want real meditation, real inner stability, your lifestyle must become sattvic. Your food, your company, your speech, your thinking. Because the name of God is pure. It doesn't comfortably sit inside a mind that keeps feeding itself poison. Now, whether you take this as religious or psychological, the point is the same. If your nervous system is constantly overstimulated, junk food, toxic entertainment, gossip, constant lust, constant anger, then of course your mind will not become peaceful. Then of course meditation will feel dry, because you are trying to light a lamp in a storm. Pause. Now comes one of the most powerful ideas in the lecture. The teacher says the greatest blessing is not to have your desires fulfilled. The greatest blessing is to have your desires removed. Imagine that. Most of us pray like this, God, give me what I want. But the wise pray like this, God, remove what makes me want so much. Because desire is not just a wish. Desire is a chain. Desire makes you dependent. It makes you angry when blocked. It makes you jealous when someone else has more. It makes you fearful because you might lose what you got. So even when desire is fulfilled, it doesn't give peace. It creates new desire. It's like drinking salty water. You drink, you feel relief for a moment, and then the thirst returns stronger. Pause. And then the teacher gives a path that is simple but not easy. He says, stop taking service from others. As long as your body is healthy, do your own work. Wash your own clothes, clean your own space, serve others instead of being served. Why? Because the desire to be served feeds ego. It secretly says, I am important, take care of me, prioritize me. And that subtle ego becomes your bondage. So the saints crush it, not with big speeches, with a broom, with humility, with cleaning, with working, with living simply. And the teacher gives examples, old saints who did everything themselves until their bodies truly became incapable. They didn't accept comfort easily, because comfort can become addiction, and addiction becomes attachment, and attachment becomes bondage. Pause. Then the teacher says something beautiful. Whether you are a householder or a monk, see your family as forms of God. Your spouse, your children, your parents. Not as servants, not as people supposed to do things for you, but as divine souls entrusted to you. If you live with that feeling, service becomes natural. Anger reduces, ego melts, because you stop saying, why should I do this, and start saying, how can I love better?
Now, the lecture moves into another intense warning. It says, do not listen to gossip and spiritual criticism, especially criticism of saints, devotees, teachers, or sincere seekers, because enjoying someone else's downfall is poison. Even if you don't speak, if you enjoy hearing it, you are participating. The teacher says something strong. The one who speaks and the one who listens both receive the same punishment. Again, whether you take it literally or not, the psychology is undeniable. Gossip creates false superiority. It gives the ego a sugar rush. But afterward, your mind becomes dirty. It becomes cynical, distrustful, restless. So the teacher advises, if someone comes to you with gossip, be neutral. If someone insults your spiritual path, your chosen devotion, your teacher, don't argue, don't fight, just leave. Withdraw your intimacy, because your mind is your temple, and you don't let anyone throw garbage inside. Pause. Then comes another subtle instruction. Don't talk about your spiritual experiences. If you had a blissful meditation, a beautiful dream, a deep moment of devotion, don't announce it. Why?
because the ego will immediately try to convert it into status. I'm advanced. I'm special. Look at me. And the moment spirituality becomes a performance, sincerity weakens. The teacher says, digest it quietly. Let it transform you privately. Real spirituality makes you humble. It doesn't make you loud. Pause. Now the lecture returns to the core again. If you remove desire, anger reduces, because anger is usually blocked desire. You wanted respect, you didn't get it. You wanted control, you lost it. You wanted agreement, they disagreed, so you burn. But if you don't demand so much, there is less fuel for anger. And the teacher says, if conflict arises, fold your hands and walk away. Protect your inner state. Because whatever you fight about today will replay in your mind tomorrow. And when you sit for prayer or meditation, that bitterness will return like smoke. So avoid it. Not because you were weak, because you were wise. Pause. And now the lecture ends with something that can feel like a deep exhale. It says, you think everything depends on you. You think if you don't worry, life will collapse. But the universe is not running on your anxiety. The one who creates, sustains, and dissolves countless worlds can handle your life. Your job is not to control existence. Your job is to recognize existence, to remember the divine, to serve with humility, to reduce desire, to keep your heart clean, and then surrender. Because surrender is not passivity. Surrender is trust after effort. Surrender is doing your duty and not carrying the burden of outcomes. Pause. So what do we take from Shishupāl? We take this. Attention is powerful. If hatred can create a connection, then love can create union. If obsession can lead someone to liberation, then remembrance can lead you to peace. But the path is not through magic. It is through cleanliness, inner and outer. Less desire, more service. Less gossip, more silence. Less ego, more humility. Less demand, more devotion. And slowly, very slowly, your mind will stop begging the world to make you okay. And one day you will wake up and feel something simple. I don't need anything to be at peace. And in that quiet emptiness, the divine becomes obvious. Pause. Take a deep breath, and for the next few moments, just sit with one question. Where is your attention going every day? Because the direction of your attention is the direction of your life. Long pause. If you want, close your eyes right now and gently repeat inside. Less desire, more devotion. Less taking, more serving. Less noise, more remembrance. And let this be your practice, not for perfection, but for freedom. Because freedom is not found in getting everything you want. Freedom is found when you no longer need to want so much. Slow pause. Thank you for listening. And if this message touched something in you, carry it softly into your day, not as a lesson, as a remembrance. Because the divine is not far. It is as close as your next breath and as near as your next thought.